Let's now work through some tips on how to develop your mind mapping skills. Firstly, something I want you to realize when it comes up is that this process of creating a concept map, a mind map, is very personal. It's your thinking. It's not something that can be done with your mind half involved in the task. It's a process by which you're actively making sense of your own ideas and making sense of the information you're dealing with. Okay, you have to make the mind map work for you. So if you're not fully involved in the process, it doesn't give you the kind of results it's capable of. You need to struggle with the information that you're putting into your concept map. Push yourself to search for complexity. You don't have to start complex. Start simple if you like. Put down the basic information and then organize the more complex ideas around that infrastructure, that basic superstructure, if you like, of simple ideas. So start simple, grow in complexity. Remember, the biggest learning happens when you're starting to struggle to insert information into the concept map, and I'll come back to that time and time again. One tip, use a stylus. Now, I'm making the assumption that you should be using your tablets when you're doing your concept mapping. Certainly, for decades, people have been using concept maps, pen and paper. But I think paper is quite limiting because of its very nature. It has size and edge. Your OneNote is ideal for concept mapping, and a stylus is an ideal way of quickly interacting with that tablet. Typing changes the process. That thought process of where I'll click, what I'll type, loses something of the instinctive nature of good concept mapping and the quick thinking that comes. As you're using your stylus, and if you must, pens on paper, but use colour. Colour coding matters. Now, it's hard to know when you will need to change colour, but if you're thinking it needs to change colour, think about it not because it looks pretty to change colour, but because the concept has changed. As you change idea in this mind map, as you change concept in the concept map, as you break down a different component, it's that transition to a different thing that means a different colour. In the colours you use, strong colours are much more effective. Okay, now you can change the mode to dark mode of your OneNote and so on, and so light colours and fluoro colours can work against a black background and so forth. I realise there are ways that are there, but dark colours, contrasting colours to the background, are what are going to help you read and make sense of that information later on. All the examples you've seen in the previous video actually had a striking contrast between what's written and its background. Don't have this sort of insipid colour on an insipid background like white. Okay, make sure the pen colour stands out. Okay, be careful of this trap of just somehow making the old-fashioned notes in dot point down a page but with lines on them. Concept mapping is a different form of note-taking to the dot point linear note-taking ways that you might be used to. Many people have been trained for decades of schooling. In your case, it might be about 9 years or more of writing notes neatly, one under another down the page. And it's interesting, to an extent, that has worked for you. Most of you are successful students. So doing those dot points down the page, you've had a reward out of. But we're looking to go to the next level here. Be aware that making linear notes is perhaps not getting the best return for your time as possible, that you should be trying to map out ideas. And when you map out ideas, you'll see there is, I guess, a whole messiness to the nature of it. You shouldn't be writing too much. A key word, a key idea, a key concept that connects to others is what you need here. We're not writing mini paragraphs usually. We're writing key, simple points. The challenging part comes when you choose what to leave in and what to take out, to figure out what fits and what doesn't fit together. It's the lines between ideas and the gaps where lines don't go. that matter. You're working out the connects and the disconnects. You're looking at how things fit together and what doesn't fit with the picture. Sometimes it's the exceptions, it's the outliers that are most important to your thinking. So write only what you need to. Don't just make lists of information. Think carefully how things fit together. Struggle over the lines. And when you notice you've got a really great, important idea that doesn't connect to anything else, that might reveal a gap in your understanding. It might actually be the very point that this one thing is not like the rest. So think through what your concept map may be revealing to you. As I've said before, using colour, change colours when you change concept. Use the tools in your OneNote. Okay? Rule lines, draw lines, pinch, enlarge, put arrows on both heads, insert hyperlinks, insert images if you need to. Use the lines on the background. You can go the grid lines. You can go faint line rules, like as if you're writing pen and paper. But do whatever you need to do to make sure your concept map is effective for you. Be organised, but don't get hung up on having to be neat. Ideas in history are often messy. Ideas often feel like they connect everywhere. One thing that happens with history teachers, I've noticed myself, is that we're easily sidetracked, and that's because ideas constantly have connection to something else. Our big concepts join with other big concepts. There's always another story. So as you're putting together your concept map, you want to be organised, but don't make the mistake of thinking that organised will always be, inverted commas, neat. The ideas you grapple with are often messy, as is your thought process. Everything probably connects in some way, so you're making choices of how and where you put the lines. How many lines? How many arrowheads does it take? Is it a split line? You've seen some examples in the other video. Final point I want to leave you here is that your concept map is a process, not a product. It's the journey of writing the concept map that helps you to learn. Use the concept map to reveal to yourself an order and a structure that's in the topic, to impose some order and structure on your thinking. There's usually a huge amount of information in history that you're trying to make sense of. Use your concept map as a process by which you arrange it in an order that makes sense to you. Remember, start with simple concepts and then build upon them a greater complexity. A good concept map will often show your gaps in understanding. So if you're feeling like you don't understand something in your concept map, you might be right. That might be the very point of what the struggle is about at that time. Start simply, build complexity. When you spot connections between ideas, you're progressing. But sometimes when you struggle to find the connections, that's where you reveal the most important and complex problems. So there's progress in finding connection. That's a good thing. But struggling to make connections is where you often discover the most complicated information, the most important information, the information that often gets you the best grades, the greatest grades. That's where the thinking happens, in the complex struggle to find connection. So I'll leave you with that quote again. It's the questions we can't answer that often teach us the most. It's the areas you struggle with finding connection in your concept map that will often be the most powerful. They teach you how to think. It's in those moments of struggle, of going, how can I connect these ideas? Why do these 2 concepts, 3 concepts, 4 concepts all relate to the same idea? How do they interact? That's where you're thinking. If an answer is easy, it's perhaps a little fact. And little facts are fine, by the way. It's good to have those facts. But the bigger questions lead to more significant answers, more challenging answers, and more challenging questions. So good luck in your concept mapping.